And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the Hashnode Bootcamp on technical writing. Hope you are all fine and hope you are looking forward to learn new things and get a batch of new, let's say, information and a pack of wisdom. Let's start this with a brief overview of last session. So I'm Bruno, the host, will be host for the next whole bootcamp and for these 2 weeks. Last session we have this presentation from Chris Bongers. He was talking about why every developer should start a blog, and it's pretty much a nice talk and a pretty much important topic. And the task that he gave you for the first session was to write an article which will help a past version of yourself to overcome some problem. And it's pretty much an interesting task, and you will keep coming to this task often because it is kind of endless source of information, source of inspiration, because we as a software developers, we are evolving, we are learning new things over and over, and what you know today maybe you didn't know last year, and there is always material that you can pick to start writing blogs. So not only for the first task for this bootcamp, but keep this task in mind. So for the future your journey, blogging journey. Today's session will be a little bit different. So last session was a presentation mode. This will be more like Q&A session. It will be like 30 to 35 minutes. So yeah, keep that in mind. I would like to remind you that you can drop your questions, but please use the question tab here. Don't use comments because it will be I don't know. We won't maybe see it, and B, here in the question section you have this upvote mechanism, so we will be reading questions based on the number of upvotes. And yeah, so today's guest is James Q. Quick. He is conference speaker, YouTube creator, teacher, course creator, I don't know, streamer, you name it. He is creating pretty much a lot of content on different medias. He is kind of oriented also to learning things from scratch. So I saw his content, so he's oriented into that. On his Twitch, he's streaming, I don't know, casual conversation with other developers, and not just developers, but from tech world. And he's as I said, pretty much active in content producing. But I only recently started following him, so I think he can better introduce himself. So yeah, maybe we can start with that. So hi, James.
Hey. Yeah, thanks for having me. Just give you a little bit of a quick intro. So developer, speaker, and teacher are typically the three things that I kind of associate with myself. And I've been doing some combination of those things professionally for about the last 7 or 8 years. And a lot of it's just been kind of the jobs that I've ended up in. I started my career as a technical evangelist, and then now I'm a developer advocate at Auth0. And a lot of that is working with the community, so being active in the community, creating content for the community to learn from, doing workshops and guest lectures, and speaking at conferences and that sort of stuff. And it's just been a lot of fun. So I get to do that professionally. And then I also create a lot of content on my own, doing my YouTube channel with about 2 videos a week. So trying to make sure I'm staying consistent there. I've been blogging more recently, and I've gone kind of off and on with blogging over the years. And just doing really any type of content I can, and the idea that like I enjoy it, one, and then other people get to benefit from it as well.
Okay, we can start with the first question. I mean, partially you said something already you answered, but the question is, how do you decide which topic to write on? You said you are writing something that you are enjoying, but maybe elaborate a little bit on that. So
yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a mix of like balancing. For the most part, I write and create content on stuff that I enjoy or stuff that I want to learn. That's a really interesting perspective that I talked about recently in a video. I'll send a link in the chat in a second. But as a content creator, sometimes you're not just creating content on stuff that you already know. Sometimes you're actually like picking a topic that you'd be interested in learning and then learning that thing to create that content. So that's the same for blogging, videos, for speaking at a conference, that sort of stuff. So a lot of it's stuff that I'm interested in, stuff that I see people talking about on Twitter. A lot of it is stuff that I could use for some specific reason. So, or have used for some specific reason. So as I build my blog, my personal blog, out with Gatsby and Sanity.io and that sort of stuff, I created a bunch of content around that. As I'm learning Next.js now and tying in authentication with Auth0, I've been creating more content around Next.js. So it's either things I want to learn, things I've learned recently. And honestly, there's not enough time in the day to create as much content as I would like, just because almost anything that you do, anything that you learn is valuable for somebody.
Okay. And I would ask, jump in and ask one question, which can kind of set up the stage. So your content is often oriented towards the beginner developers. I saw it. So let's use this opportunity to ask you directly, why did you choose that path?
Well, I would say I have a decent mix of that sort of stuff. And just like if you compare to some other channels and some content creators, it's all relative, right? Like some people start with even more introductory stuff than what I do. So I would say I've got kind of a mix of intro to intermediate content. And I think like as a content creator, creating the content that you create, you want as big of an audience as possible for the most part, right? Like you want to be able to help, you want as many people as possible to be able to learn from that content. That's not always necessarily the case, but usually that's kind of what you're looking for. And so that's like most people are looking for beginner to intermediate content. So the cool thing that we see nowadays is so many self-taught developers, people that are going through Udemy, they're reading blogs on Hashnode, they're going through courses on, or videos and courses on YouTube, they're doing boot camps. Like that's just, we have so many people that are learning and they're just actively looking for that sort of content. So again, like most of what I do really comes from like my passion and the stuff that I enjoy. I also am teaching a boot camp right now. So we're doing a lot of like starting from scratch programming in JavaScript. And so I'm going to create a few more things around that. One, so that like people in class can benefit from, but also people in the community can benefit from. And obviously with that content specifically, that's going to be very introductory content because these are people that, for the most part, 90% of them or so are really starting from scratch, never having done any programming before at all. And so we've made a lot of really good progress. We've learned a lot, but there's still a whole lot of stuff that they have not even been exposed to. So yeah, it still comes back to like the stuff that I enjoy, the stuff that I want to create content about.
And it's pretty much cool that you are actually doing it. I mean, helping others to kickstart their developer career. I mean, especially for the beginners, when you want to learn some new thing, it's pretty important to have some kind of content available, but also content that is that you as a beginner can understand, that is written in language that you can understand. Yeah. So it's not like written from some, I don't know, senior architect and some abstract terms, and that you don't even know what does it mean. So yeah, it's pretty much cool that you are doing it and that you are actually enjoying it. So yeah,
actually, if I can add to something you said was really important there. The ability, like not just on my end, but in general, to communicate technical concepts to people who are not technical, who aren't developers, or are not as technical as you are, is a really, really crucial, important skill, especially if you look at career progression, because a lot of beginner developers are really focused on like, how do I get that first job, or how do I make the transition into tech? But you also have to think about like longer term, what does your career look like? And one of the things that's been the biggest helper for me in my career is my ability to communicate and talk. Like if you think about, this is not at all true, but the stereotypical developer is like, doesn't really like to talk to people, just sits in front of their computer all day. And so if you find people who are really comfortable communicating, who can give presentations to upper management, for example, who can explain to them the technical concepts that they might not have any concept about before, that's a really big, important skill set. So I'm going to throw a link in here to a video I did recently that came out yesterday of 5 things that I learned over the course of my career creating YouTube videos. And one is how to be a better communicator and a better teacher. And again, those are skills you can find out a little bit more in the video. But skills that have certainly helped me like directly in some of the progressions that I've made in my career.
Yeah, feel free to just to drop the link in the chat section. So I will move to another question. So it is also related to the beginners and when you are starting a career. So can I write a blog as a junior developer who has less number of experience in the field, or can I write blog once I get enough experience?
Yeah. So to be really clear, whatever amount of experience you have, you're ready to write. Like it doesn't matter. And the way to think about this is like, no matter how much experience you have, you had to learn something from somewhere, right? Like you came across some problem that you couldn't solve and you went and Googled it, right? Or you went on YouTube and you looked for an answer, or you searched for a blog that covered that answer. So everything that you have learned, even if you don't know as much as some of the people that you look at that are also creating content, all the things that you have learned, someone else is yet to learn those things. And you could be that person. Your content, your blog could be the thing that teaches them that thing. So no, there's absolutely there's no requirement in terms of experience to create content. Somebody's going to benefit from it. And early on, especially when you don't have an audience or you don't have a way to really promote it, I think that'll be one of the questions coming up next. But when you don't have as much of that, you may not get a ton of traffic, but just keep in mind that all of this stuff is a process. Like I'll throw a link to this in the chat too, but I just did an ebook on YouTube for developers, and it talks about my experience. It talks about like what you can expect if you start to create videos. It talks about the benefits of why you should. And it's just important to know that like people that you follow that are content creators, they didn't have audiences overnight. They didn't have a following overnight. I've been creating YouTube videos for 7 years, and for 5 of those years, I had less than 1,000 subscribers. And in the last 6 months, I've like doubled, almost tripled the amount of subscribers I had. But again, I've been doing this for 7 years. So you may not have a big audience at first, but it's still going to be valuable for someone. And the best thing is that'll get you in the habit of creating content, and you'll kind of get over that imposter syndrome of nobody cares what I'm talking about, or what if I say something wrong. Just do the first one, do the first article, do the first video, build that habit, and that will continue to grow, and it will be worthwhile. And I talk about a lot of these things over and over again, but like on your resume, if you say, oh, I'm a strong communicator, or I'm a strong writer, or I learn quickly. Like those are just words on a resume. If you can show people, here's something I wrote, here's something I created, here's a video that I made, though, that's proof that you have those skill sets. So I always love the idea of like content being that really part of your portfolio. And it absolutely should be, because it directly shows the skill sets that you may claim to have on your resume.
And if I may add, I mean, I'm also always saying that whatever you learned, just write about it, because you will learn somebody else. And like we are all climbing stairs. So for example, and you are only one stair on top of the previous one, and you are actually pretty much close, so you can lend a hand, and so you together can learn much more. So you are not asking from the help for somebody who was there all 10 years ago, or you are asking, so that this is pretty cool about that. So feel free to write about whatever you learned. Absolutely. And as you said, you already started with the next question a little bit. So yeah, the next question is, how do you grow traffic to your blog, especially if you are a beginner and starting out? So maybe just expand a little bit your previous answer.
Yeah. So also to add, like the video that I referenced and I put a link in the chat for, I did an article that's cross-posted on Hashnode about the same thing. And it covers a lot of this. So one of the things that I've learned in creating content and content in general, but the article is specifically about videos, is you have to share your stuff. You have to learn how to market yourself. And the less people who know that your content is out there, obviously the less people who are going to watch it, the less people who are going to read. So you have to kind of force yourself to share that stuff, even if it's not natural. And for me, it's not really natural for me to go and post on Twitter and say, hey, I'd created this new article or video. But you have to, right? Because otherwise people don't know it's there. And you can be a little kind of creative on how you share it. You can like change your wording and just be creative to make it not look like you're just bragging about yourself, but you're really trying to provide value to the people who come across this post. So posting on every platform that you have, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, writing an article on Hashnode. If you're doing a video, doing a corresponding article, or if you're just doing your article, then you share that on the other social media platforms. And you can do that more than once. This is something I don't do a great job at, but if you tweet about your article once, some amount of people will see it, but not everyone that could see it. So you can post that a similar post a few days later or the following week and get that many more eyeballs on it. So I think that's a really good tip to do that I don't do as much as I should. And then another thing is to leverage other platforms. Like if you have the ability to be a guest author for a popular blog platform, something that gets more traffic and more visibility than you would on your own. Usually you can do that and then kind of link to a personal page of yours or something like that. One of the things that I've done recently on YouTube specifically is I've done a few videos on the Traversy Media channel. So if you watch any developer YouTube videos, you probably know who that channel is, but that's helped me a lot in gaining awareness for my channel. And then I also did a video on the Free Code Camp YouTube channel. And the same thing, that was able to drive a lot of traffic to my personal channel. So a lot of that growth that I've had in the last 6 months has been from collaborating with bigger platforms than myself. And in terms of articles now, I get lots of companies reaching out and looking for paid articles and paid sponsored YouTube videos as well, which is a really cool feeling. I can't quite keep up with all of the requests. But again, that's a great way to potentially make money off of some of your content, but also gets to leverage their platform and just drive more visibility to yourself. So staying consistent and sharing your stuff, sharing it in a meaningful and useful way for the community, I think is really important. And then potentially trying to leverage like some of the other bigger platforms or audiences that are out there to get exposure to their audience to really come towards the stuff that you do.
And you said you had some people contacting you based on your blogs. And do you have any kind of funny story about how someone approached you based on the blog or based what you wrote?
Maybe not funny, but I did get a really interesting one that I immediately was like, "Yep, I'm going to do this." And I won't say who the company is. I don't know if it matters or not, but I won't say who it is. But they're based in Europe, and I've been to Amsterdam a few times for work when I worked at FedEx. And stroopwafels are a big. I don't know how many people know what stroopwafels are, but they're delicious. So it's like two very, very extremely thin, like waffle type things with caramel in the middle, and you can do other things with it, and they're delicious. And so this company reached out and said, "Hey, we'd be interested in having you write for our blog." And I don't know what the rate would be, but whatever it is. And they said, in addition to that, we also send all of our writers basically a care package with a big box of stroopwafels. And I'm in the United States. We obviously aren't traveling internationally now, and I didn't have any trips planned to that area anyway. So that was a really cool, like immediately I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this because I want some stroopwafels.
Yeah, that's pretty cool benefit that you had since you are writing a blog. So yeah, the next question is coming to the very beginning, very beginnings. How to say it? Not like that, but the question is how you actually start with blogging. What was that first? When you started, how you decided to start? And
yeah, a lot of all of this stuff for me was just a byproduct of my job that I had when I started college. And I would say I was pretty unique, but also pretty lucky for the role that I started in. So coming out of college, I started with Microsoft as a technical evangelist. And your job is to engage with the community, create content, do all of those types of things that I'm doing now. And I didn't know that type of role existed. I didn't know that was the type of role that I would really be interested in. It just worked out that way. And so as part of my job, my mentor at the time said he had a blog and that I should do that too. So back in the day, it was an MSDN page for my blog through Microsoft. And I did that for a couple of years. Then I think I moved to doing a WordPress site, and I did that for a little while. And then a couple of years ago, I just completely scrapped all of that, and I built my personal site and blog with Gatsby, and then started using Sanity.io as a headless CMS. So in terms of like why I started, it was really someone told me I should, and I did. On the video side, I specifically started creating videos because I was doing these workshops with people, and I was saying the same thing over and over again. And so during these workshops, I would teach a little bit and then say, all right, you go and do some stuff yourself. And people would just be lost. And I would have to go around and kind of repeat the same things to people. So I just created videos that I could share and say, hey, if you get stuck, go watch these videos. And that way I could be able to kind of teach and lead and instruct more people at any given time, because I had video resources for them to go and reference. So blogging was because Mentor told me to, and it seemed to make sense as part of my job. I think the way I do content now and the reason I do content now is a little different. Like, I want to continue to build my brand and the exposure that I get for content, because I do lots of content, and I do paid content as well. And if I could potentially like be able to do paid content full time, I'm a long way away from that. But if I could do that, I would be really interested in doing it. So intentionally creating videos, intentionally writing articles is really just to keep up the exposure for my personal brand, and in the hopes that like maybe one day I can do all of this full time. And in the meantime, I enjoy it enough to keep doing it and having fun with it.
And that's a lot of content that you are creating. But we also have this question which strikes a lot of bloggers and a lot of content creators. So you keep producing, but yeah, there are some times when you are not feeling like producing, when you don't have time, or I don't know, something else happens. So, but especially this question is more like about when you are not in the mood, when you are not feel like creating content. How you cope with that? How you overcome that?
Yeah. So the one thing I really try to stick with in terms of consistency is one video a week on YouTube. So blogging, to be honest, is not my favorite form of content to create. It's actually a lot more difficult for me to write a blog post than it is to create a YouTube video. So I try to do articles that go along with my YouTube videos if I can, but you'll see like I don't only a handful of my videos actually have corresponding articles, and that's because I just don't have the time. I just don't quite enjoy blogging as much as videos. And the one thing, like I said, that I care about is that consistency on videos. What do I do if I don't feel like creating a video? Well, I've got like some easy ideas in the backlog where I don't have to do any preparation. I could potentially do a video where I just get on and talk. I could do a simple coding example, something that I don't have to do any preparation. I don't have to do anything extra. I can just get on, record for 15 minutes, edit for 15 minutes, create a cover image, and kind of be done. So I have those types of videos that are easy for me. So if I don't feel like putting in extra effort, I can kind of knock those out when I need to. And then I don't write articles for every video. When I have time, I absolutely do, but I don't for everyone. And I'm starting to try to pay more attention to the amount of time that I take for myself. So I enjoy creating content a lot, but it's also really important to do other things. And my wife and I during COVID, have actually gotten to do a lot of stuff together. Started running together, started playing golf together, playing disc golf together. And so I'm starting to make sure that I'm taking plenty of time to do those sorts of activities and kind of get away from content to make sure that I'm not losing sight of the other things in life, because creating content is fun, but it's not the same in terms of importance as family and just overall enjoyment and mental health and that sort of stuff is.
Yeah, definitely work-life balance. I mean, not work. Well, yes, it is work. So you have to dedicate your time to produce. So it is pretty much important. Yeah, one of my question was, did articles follow videos or videos follow articles? But you already explained that. Yep. So, yeah. Okay. The next question is about SEO, and do you know anything about SEO, and do you have any tips on that topic?
Yeah, so they've kind of called me out on this a few times with my Hashnode articles of just being new to the platform, and I've been called out to say like, hey, here's some tags that you should probably include in your article. I think it's like the general programming or something is one of the big ones that they recommend, and that's just kind of for exposure, right? So kind of understanding how to use those keywords, and I'm not the best at that, especially in the blogging area. But trying to pick a couple of keywords that are relevant to the things that you're doing, If you're doing a Node.js app, Node.js. If you're building with Express, that sort of stuff. I can talk more about the YouTube side because I actually pay a decent amount of attention to SEO stuff there. And I do a little bit of research before I do a video or before I finalize the details for a video of like, I'll search the keyword that I'm thinking about, and then I'll see how much traffic there is or how much search traffic there is for that keyword versus how much competition there is for that keyword. And that will kind of give me an idea of how to structure all of my keywords. So when I create YouTube videos, there's like 2 or 3 that are kind of like, those are the targeted keywords. Then you build around that. And in YouTube, you get 500 characters to fill out in terms of keywords. And so I do those first 3, and then I just kind of do different variations of that. And I personally pay for a plugin, I guess, a Chrome extension called TubeBuddy. And it's $10 a month, and it gives lots of assistance in coming up with SEO. And it kind of gives me an SEO score for my videos based on the title, description, and tags. And it helps give suggestions with tags. So that helps me a lot. I really lean heavily on that thing to help drive my tags and how I word my titles and descriptions and stuff in my videos.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, the next one is kind of related to the content itself. I mean, kind of how to pack the content, especially if you need to explain a technical stuff more in detail. So yeah, I will just write the complete question because it's kind of longer. So sometimes I choose a topic, but there's a need to explain the technical stuff for the blog. So to explain that content, can I copy type of content from MDN or some place? Is this a good practice? MDN, like Mozilla Developer Network.
Yeah. I think if there's extra concepts that are not the focus of that article, that would be useful for people who don't already have that context. I think linking off to other resources does make sense. That's one of the things that I kind of struggle with, and one of the reasons I'm not as big of a fan of blogging, again, for me personally, as I am video, is it's easier for me to kind of ad lib in a video, hey, here's a quick explanation of this. But when I'm writing that, it's like, how many of these extra articles or extra paragraphs am I adding to this article to explain all of these things that they might want or need to know about? So I think linking to extra resources, that's a great idea. That kind of offloads your responsibility. And to a certain extent, like if there's a good article that you can reference, there's not really any need for you to rewrite the entire thing yourself, right? And then you get to keep the flow of your blog or your video. And I think the most important thing probably is like whatever your topic is, if they need some background on something that's not core to what you're covering or what you're focusing on, that's probably a good indication that you can outsource that. You can link to another resource. And I think that's a good flow to kind of, or a good way to think about how and when to link to other resources. If it's not really core to this demo, if it's not the focus, send them elsewhere to get those details, and then just kind of focus on the things that are most important for your article or video.
Yeah, and it's pretty much important to keep it as minimum as possible. So because people don't have time, so be straight to the point, to concise, and if you need additional explanation, yeah, point them to get it. But if you are just referencing like yeah, it's kind of related, you can check it here. Maybe consider not even putting it in there. But yeah, I think that was not the intention of our author of this question. So yeah, now we have a little bit, at least for me, interesting question. So it's about writing tone, writing the language use. Should it be like more formal, or should it be more like kind of conversational vibe, so that you start explaining how you even stumbled upon on that topic? And yeah, what do you prefer and what do you suggest?
I certainly prefer conversational. Like I love when people have, I don't even know how to describe it. Like they kind of like comment on their own writing and they kind of make a joke out of it, if that makes sense. Like it's super informal, but if you can kind of react somehow like to yourself, to the thing you wrote, and kind of make something funny or entertaining. Like reading articles and watching videos sometimes is really dry. Like you're listening to technical concepts, and sometimes that's all you want. It's like, I just want to know how to do this thing. But for the most part, it's more fun to learn when it's in a more fun environment, whether it's reading or watching a video. So for me, I'm I'm pretty casual. I certainly don't try to be formal by any means. And I wish I was even more entertaining, I think, when I create videos and write articles. I wish I was funnier. I wish I had more of my personality in my content. So that's something that I think about a lot, because it's easy, especially if it's in like a tutorial article or video. Say, all right, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And that's just not quite as fun. Like having a little bit of color, having a little bit of personality, I think not only makes it more enjoyable to read, but also gives the reader or the viewer a deeper connection with you. They feel like they make a more personal connection with you because they know a little bit about your personality. And I think that's the kind of thing that brings people back to your content. Like having that little bit of extra, that little bit of you that you can give and expose yourself to them, to be a little bit vulnerable with too, I think is how you kind of build people that come back to your content later on. So yeah, I'm certainly not intentionally formal in any of mine, and I wish I was a little bit more joking and informal sometimes in the stuff that I do.
Okay. The next one is we talked a little bit about this in the first part of this session about how you teach someone something and how it's important to always teach, and no matter what you know. But the question directly is how do you get into teaching or mentoring if you are not in teaching position professionally?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you create a YouTube video or you create an article, you're a teacher to a certain extent. Like a teacher means someone that teaches somebody else something. It's not a teacher doesn't just mean someone that gets paid and they teach 40 hours a week, right? So you're creating content in any capacity, and it could be a tweet as well. Like Wes Voss has really taken off with this idea of like really having these like super impactful small nuggets of things inside of tweets. Those are teaching other people things. So if you want to be a teacher, create content. If you want to more actively engage with individuals in teaching, you can join Discord servers and respond to questions there and have one-on-ones with people. You can join meetups aren't in person, which actually opens up more opportunity for meetups. But going to virtual events, going to things like this, going to events once we get more comfortable with it in person, building those one-on-one relationships with people, seeing where people have questions, seeing where you can help contribute with answers, all of that is teaching. Like there's no hard definition that says you have to do this full time. So any value that you provide to someone is teaching to a certain extent. So create content, join groups, listen for people that have questions, respond to those questions, have a conversation with those people. And if you have the ability to offer one-on-one time with people, if that's something you're interested in, then you can certainly offer that too. And I do that occasionally. I have to be careful just because that takes up time too. But you can offer that one-on-one time and have kind of direct connections with people in terms of mentorship or just teaching.
Okay, now comes the tough one. Be prepared. So what was your greatest failure and what did you learn from that? Maybe in terms of blogging or content creation, or maybe in that context.
Probably my biggest one was I've gone through 2 iterations of a WordPress site. And at one point I lost everything that I had done, and I didn't really know WordPress at all. I was kind of abstracted away from how it worked. And I think the database was in Microsoft Azure again, back in my Microsoft days. And I didn't really understand how to manage that thing. I just didn't understand all of that stuff. I wasn't a developer in that sense. And I wasn't aware in that sense of like what all was going on. And I accidentally deleted my database. And that was when I had to kind of pivot and just start from scratch. And it didn't end up being that big of a deal. The content that I had there was different than the stuff that I wanted to create going forward. So it wasn't that big of a deal in some ways, but at the same time, like I lost everything that I had done over the course of a couple of years. So it kind of sucked, to be honest. But it did give me a reason to start over. It did give me a reason to learn more about how that stuff worked and to make sure that I had backups of WordPress, for example. Now all of my stuff is checked into source code. So my personal site is Gatsby, and kind of all the stuff that I need is inside of that source code in GitHub. So I always have access to it. The data from that is in Sanity. So I guess I could mess up and delete that stuff, but it would be really hard for me to do that. And so that content lives somewhere securely that I know. I feel pretty good about it not going away. So I feel like I'm in a much better spot for that kind of stuff going forward.
And you know what not to do next time. So this is pretty much lessons learned.
Yeah,
Probably for the
don't delete your
lifetime.
database. Yeah.
Yeah, that's often happens.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we are slowly coming to an end for this session. I will pick a few more questions, blog related,
Sure.
and maybe to keep it shorter. But this one is interesting for me. So, in terms of when you are starting, when you are a beginner, especially. So, I often do my best when I write blog, but often I got less reaction or views. So, my question is how to turn my blog interesting and gain more audience and more interaction.
Yeah, pay attention. This is something that I struggle with too, by the way. So this is something I'm doing actively myself. Pay attention to the ones that do become popular. A lot of it comes from what your hook is, the title of your article. People like top 10 something something, right? Like, or this is the best something something, or this is how something changed my life. Like a lot of that stuff just comes from your title and your first couple of sentences to really catch people. So just pay attention. Like go look on Hashnode and see what the most popular articles are, and then look at why. Is it their title? Is it their cover image? Is it the first couple of sentences? Is it the topic? So just pay attention to those things and then try to plan a little bit more accordingly to that. And again, part of it is not having an audience necessarily. Like the bigger of an audience you have, the more people already know about you, the more they trust you and they're looking for your content. So some of it's just like having to build up to that. And it definitely takes time, but just pay attention to the ones that you see being more successful and having more interaction, and try to imitate some of that stuff.
Okay. And I will combine these two questions. How many hours a week should I dedicate for blogging? That's the first one. And how to balance coding with write-up as a beginner. So it's kind of similar. How much time dedicate and how to balance that time.
Yeah, it all depends on what your goals are. If your goals are just to kind of complement your learning process and then share some of that stuff, if it's just to kind of get it out there, it shouldn't take a ton of your time. I think if it is taking a ton of your time, you need to start simpler. Create shorter blog posts that are easier for you to maintain. The thing you don't want to get is like setting too high of expectations for yourself and then feeling bad when you don't meet them. That's why for me, like I don't push myself to write an article every week because I can't do that comfortably. It doesn't really fit into the time and energy that I have. So how much time should you spend a week? An hour or two, and kind of see how that goes. If it's something that you enjoy, then you can do more time, but just be conscious of like, how difficult is it for you to spend that amount of time writing articles or doing videos, and make sure that it's something that you enjoy enough to do to dedicate that much time. And if not, cut back or start simpler with your articles. Write them smaller. Like a small article isn't necessarily a bad thing. If it's to the point and it covers the topic, that's all that matters. As long as people read it and they get what they're looking for, that's really what matters.
Yeah, nobody ever said, "Dear God, this blog is too short."
Yeah.
So yeah, I will ask one more question, and yeah, there are a lot of questions which left unanswered, but feel free to ping on Twitter, James, with those questions. But one more question, and we will close this session. So, what's your way to research about particular topic before making content, before making video or blog writing? Or so, what's the way how to approach the research of the topic?
Research is really what I'm interested in doing in terms of topic. And then to get more specific, I do some keyword research to see how to kind of mold and shape the title, tags, and description into something that is going to be the most discoverable by people. So I do keyword research to see how much competition there is for research or for that keyword, how much people are searching for that keyword, and I might adjust kind of the way I structure that post based on that sort of stuff. But other than that, it's about stuff that's interesting for me. Because again, going back to like your balance of how much time do you spend on this stuff, it should be time that you're not forcing yourself to do. It should be fun for you. It should be stuff that you enjoy. And if you get away from that, you may need to pay attention to like, how can you change it up a little bit to be stuff that you enjoy more? And then you don't have to worry about like forcing yourself to spend time. Hopefully it's stuff that you enjoy enough to just kind of do for yourself anyway.
Okay, yeah, James, yeah, that would be it from our side. Maybe if you have something from your side to plug, I don't know, some resources or whatever you want to say, what we didn't maybe cover, what you expected to say, yeah, feel free to do it now. You can drop the links in the chat section. So yeah, I think as I said, for any other questions, people, you can just go there and ping James directly. So in case that we didn't cover all of your questions, 40 minutes are already up. So yeah, keep that in mind. We cannot, and there is this almost infinite scroll of questions, so we cannot keep with everything. But yeah, to keep this content short and watchable. So yeah, we have to put it. Okay, if that's it, so thanks James again for being our guest. Thank you all also for all the people for listening and participating in this live session. Yeah, I would remind you to finish your task from the first session. You have like 7 days from the day that that first session started. And also reminder for the next session, it will be in 2 days with Michaela Greiler, and the topic is how can engineers can blog successfully and how to grow their readership. So yeah, it's pretty much also interesting speaker and interesting topic. So thanks again everyone for attending here, and yeah, see you around, and bye.
Bye. And I left my Twitter there for those questions. If people want to follow up on Twitter, I'll try to take the time to answer them. Yeah. But thanks for having me.
Yep, you too, and see you.
See ya.